But first, joining me on the phone right now is Democratic presidential candidate, the Democratic senator from New Jersey, Cory Booker. Senator, can you hear me?
I hear you well. Thank you.
Thank you so much for jumping on the phone. I really appreciate it. Speaking yesterday with Jake Tapper, you said very clearly that Donald Trump is, especially when it comes to El Paso, Donald Trump is responsible because he's stoking fear and hatred and bigotry. That was yesterday, and I wonder what then you thought of what the president prescribed and what he said to the nation just a couple hours ago.
You know, the president in his remarks was weak, and he was wrong. There can be no equivocation in a time like this where we have serious crisis in our country. And for the president to imply that video games and mental illness was the reason why a white supremacist with a gun did what he did, mental illness didn't kill the people of Dayton. A man wielding a high-caliber, high-capacity rifle did. This president is not putting forth the truth of the matter. We have right now a national crisis. There can be no equivocation about it. People are too easily getting their hands on guns, very serious weapons, and doing serious harm. He has put forth no plan whatsoever, even the most common sense ideas that the majority of NRA members agree with. He is refusing to step up and take responsibility for that change. But what makes matters worse and deepens his responsibility is the fact that he is using the very words infestation, invasion, send her back, send them back, that is adding and stoking and creating ground that nurtures this kind of hatred and violence. And so this, to me, is a presidential failure to take responsibility, a failure to lead, a failure to address a nation in crisis with real solutions that will help to keep Americans safe. It's unacceptable. It is a failure of leadership.
Senator, another thing that the president said in his remarks today, I'll read it to you. He said, "In one voice, our nation must condemn racism, bigotry, and white supremacy." That has been something, hearing that from President Trump has been something that I know a lot of folks have been waiting for and looking for, not just in the past 24 hours, but for a very long time. Do you welcome that acknowledgement?
No. Look, you know, reconciliation, the kind of healing that we need, starts first with someone standing up and saying, I've been wrong. I've made mistakes. What I've said before has been unacceptable. So you can't speak out of one side of your mouth about the need for us to come together as a country, but consistently do things that divide this nation and pit us against each other, that fuel racial bigotry and hatred. If he wants to show that he's changed, then this is about reconciliation. Speak to how you have contributed to the hate and the division and the bigotry and the racism, how you have said things that make people with violent instincts and violent intentions all the more likely to do the kind of heinous things. This is unacceptable. There is no repentance in this. There is no contrition in this. And there is no reconciliation from this president who owes the American people, someone who can't even condemn Nazis, who owes the American people so much more than he's giving. We are seeing a catastrophic failure in presidential leadership right now. There can be no equivocation about that whatsoever.
Senator, do you think after every mass shooting, this question is asked, but this is a uniquely horrific situation of what has transpired in a 13-hour span. Do you think something is, quote unquote, different this time after this mass shooting?
Look, we need a more courageous empathy in this country and have us as a nation not just witness something happening far from maybe where we live without understanding that these are horrors that can visit upon any of us at any time now, anywhere. The way we've dealt with this situation now is by having our children learning in school about reading and writing and arithmetic, and having to learn now about shelter in place and how to deal with active shooter drills. That kind of capitulation is unacceptable. We have to have a more courageous empathy in this country that calls us to act and do the common sense things for what is a uniquely American problem. Other nations have violent video games and violent movies. Other nations have challenges with mental health and mental illness, but they do not have this kind of carnage happening in their country. We are unique in the sense that we can so easily, someone who's intending to kill their girlfriend or to shoot up a community or do horrific white supremacist acts of terror can so easily get weapons in this country. These are uniquely American problems, but I believe in us as a country that we can solve them with our American will. But to not have a president, to have a governor of a state in which this happened say this is not the time to talk about solutions, all of this to me is showing again an abject failure of leadership. And I, for one, have had enough. We do not need thoughts and prayers. My faith teaches me that faith without works is dead. And the death we're seeing right now is a result of people of good conscience and good faith not demanding from their leaders the necessary changes that must happen. And I've had enough. I'm going to call out Donald Trump and any other leader who is failing in their obligation. Governments are formed first and foremost for the defense of their people and the nation. And we are seeing too many people dying at rates that have never before been seen in humanity in a nation like we're seeing here.
And the question is now before the Senate. The question is before the House, but especially before the Senate right now and the president and the governors of these states especially. And we'll see what happens and where this conversation goes in these days and how this conversation doesn't fall by the wayside like we see happen time and time again.
I want to just end with this. That's not enough. Change does not come from Washington. It comes to Washington. We didn't get women's rights, civil rights, and workers' rights by waiting for people in Washington. We demanded that change. This is a time for American activism to hold their leaders accountable for what is going on and demand from them the change that's necessary. This is not about sitting back and waiting. This is about making the change happen.
Senator, thank you for coming on. I really appreciate you jumping on the line.
Thank you. Bye-bye.